guys have been on the channel before, normally I will have some sort of 30-second stinger to kind of start the video off. But I wanted to start this one off just by saying thank you. Not only for your guys' support on all of the videos that you guys have been showing support for lately and all the new subscribers and everything that we've been getting, but for the support that you guys showed on the M14 video that I did for Perun a few months back. I think it's been 2 months at this point. But because of that support, I was able to make this video today, and I sincerely am grateful for you guys helping me out to do this. But with that mushy stuff out of the way, let's get straight into today's video because we got a lot to cover and I think you guys are going to like this one. Welcome to Wilson, my name is Wolf, and to all of our new viewers and returning viewers alike, I am very excited to have you guys here today for a video that was both an unexpected yet very pleasant surprise. Now for our new viewers, you obviously will not know this since this is your first video here, or at least one of your first few. But for my returning viewers, you might know that a few months ago, I was approached by a company called Perun to review one of their new MOSFETs, specifically their M14 MOSFET that is now happily living inside of my J&G M14 EBR. And much like that video on the M14 EBR, I was once again reached out to by Perun to make this video on one of their new items, specifically one of their newest MOSFETs, the version 2 Lightning. And I have to be honest with you guys, this was an incredibly humbling one because I wasn't really expecting to get one of these, let alone 2 of them. We'll talk about why I have 2 of them in here in just a moment, as well as what these other 2 little things are here in front of me. But before we get into that, I do want to quickly talk about the sponsorship that I have from Perun. I've been given permission to talk about these MOSFETs and the items that come with them in as unbiased as a fashion as I feel fit. Talk about whatever I need to explain to you guys what I have in front of you, the pros and the cons of using this particular setup. Now, with this being a sponsored video from Perun, is there going to be a little bit of bias? I am going to try my best not to. Obviously, it does come with the caveat that I was sent these items for free. I did not pay anything for them. They sent them to me. And as such, the bias on my part is that I didn't pay anything. But with that little disclaimer out of the way, I again wanted to just make it very clear to you guys that yes, I am being sponsored by Perun to make this video. They sent me these items for free. We talked about them at length, whether they'd be compatible with some of the replicas that I am going to be putting them in, one of which I was being the 416, as you can probably guess what's in front of me. The 2 items that were not necessarily discussed, but were sent as extras as a little tidbit from Perun, were these 2 little guys here. We'll get into these, but as you guys will remember during the M14 EBR video, Perun also sent me another MOSFET that I can't quite remember what MOSFET that. Oh, right, it was for the AUG. Yes, I haven't forgotten about the AUG MOSFET. I know I still have to actually install it into my personal AUG. This is just a little teaser for all of my AUG lovers out there. We'll get its time, I promise. It is still my favorite bullpup. I haven't forgotten about it, and I'm very excited to get a MOSFET into this one as well, but it is coming, I promise. We're doing this one first. Don't worry, Papa hasn't forgotten about you. You're on the back burner right now. Anyway, with the AUG fanboys tampered and reassured, we can now get on to the rest of this video. I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew ahead of time, obviously we are sponsored, and that the AUG video I've not forgotten about. We're actually here to talk about, which is the version 2 Lightning MOSFET, which is one of the new MOSFETs from Perun that I've actually been having my eye on for a little bit. Basically, since they announced it, I've been kind of watching it from the background, and I honestly didn't expect them to be sending me not only 1, but 2 of them. And we're going to talk about why they sent me 2 of them right now. Now, in the talks that I had with Perun, I won't obviously quote them word for word, but more or less, I was talking back and forth with them and said, I have multiple replicas for the version 2 Lightning that would be compatible. The only issue I had, or question, I suppose, not so much an issue, was I had rear wired, like the 416, and I had front wired options as well, and I didn't know if that would make a difference. Their response was, okay, we'll send you both.
You son of a bitch, I'm in!
It's very cool of them. Thank you, Perun, for doing that. I am truly humbled and truly grateful that you were willing to do that for me. But that does bring me to an interesting point. Now, as you guys know, I am a fan of the 416, and yes, I am going to be putting a version 2 Lightning into my 416. I'll be showing you guys how to do that along the way as well. But if you guys have been on the channel before, you know there is one particular platform that I am let's just say I'm known for a bit more than others. Behold, my Masada. Yes, we are going to be putting a version 2 Lightning into my A&K Masada. Now, if you guys haven't seen the video I did on this one before, I've done a full breakdown on the internals and externals of my Masada from A&K. And with that being said, I figured that it was time to make a slight upgrade. We're going to start off by showing you guys what you get inside the box, or what you can expect to find in your version 2 Lightning box. Then, after we get through all of that, we are going to go ahead and break down the ACR, or the Masada itself, as I know quite a few of you have been eagerly wanting to see how this breaks down. We're going to install a version 2 Lightning into this guy, and then once we get this stuff installed, I will make separate gameplay videos testing, directly comparing the original performance of both the 416 and the Masada to their performance after we have installed the Lightning. That will not be part of this video, so please stay tuned for that. Just as a little disclaimer, if you guys are expecting to see a full rundown of the performance afterwards, it's going to be just a little bit before I do that, because I want to get these out into the field, run them through their paces, get their settings set exactly how I want, and then give you guys the feedback that I found from the actual field and using them out, playing games. Because I think that's important. So, now that we have the table cleared off of the 416 and the Masada, let's go ahead and talk about what are in our boxes here. And the first place that we're actually going to start are with these two little boxes right here. And what these are is the Speeder V2 Gen 2 from Perun and the Clicker V2 Pro. Now, if you guys have watched the previous video with the M14, it has a clicker system inside of it. What that does is simulates a real steel trigger sort of feel, using a series of magnet connections. This one, as you guys can probably guess, is going to be going into my Masada. The reason that's going to happen is, I've mentioned this a few times before, I happen to live somewhere where an ACR or a Masada is explicitly listed as something I cannot own.
Why isn't it possible?
It's just not.
Why not, you stupid bastard?
So this is going to help get me just a little bit closer to having something close to the real thing, until I can live somewhere that allows me to actually exercise my rights as an American and be able to own a Masada or an ACR. And the Speeder Gen 2 is going to be going into my 416. It has a little bit faster of a fire rate than the Masada does, so I figured that would be a good place to put it. Let's go ahead, set these off to the side, and let's talk about what is here in front of us and what you guys are actually here to see me talk about. Now, I have already gone through and looked at both of these boxes to see if there's any difference whatsoever in what you get between the front wired unit and the rear wired unit. The boxes are the exact same, except for the fact that one of them has a front wired unit and the other one has a back wired unit. You get the exact same thing in both of them. So what I'm going to cover in the front wired box, which is what we have here, is going to be the exact same as what you get in the rear wired box, just minus the wiring situation on the MOSFET. Opening up our Lightning here, we are greeted by something very similar to what we had during the M14 EBR, which is our array of stickers. And much like the array of stickers you got for the M14, the most important ones, in my opinion, are the stickers on the side here that have your programming aids. That way you can stick these wherever you want to and have them on the go. But you'll obviously get a couple of stickers for swag with a couple logos, like for Perun and whatnot. To the side and underneath that, you get the main attraction, our MOSFET itself. Once again, just like in the M14 EBR one, they are heat wrapped, so that way they are protected from the elements during traveling. I mentioned during the video for the M14 that I thought that was a good idea, and I still think that as well. And you're going to get a little cardboard boy, just like last time, and then we are greeted by a couple of things that are different from the M14 EBR. First and foremost, we get another little patch. We're going to just slap that somewhere. Where is my patches? Right to Dale. Which is actually different than the last time. Last time I got a little rectangle guy, and this time we get just a little circular Perun logo. Or not circular, but it's however many sides. I can't. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 sides. So it is a pentagon, right? That's 5. Hexagon. That's it. That's the one. Pentagon is the 5-sided pizza palace, not the hexagon, which is the 6-sided. I can't think of anything funny for that. And then underneath your patch, you get a couple of new items that we did not see in the M14 box. And if I had to guess, this has to do with your sensors on your MOSFET which they were kind enough to give us a new selector plate for, which I'm kind of down for. I like that. And then you also get a couple of little things in here. I'm going to keep these all in here, but these are important pieces for your install of your Lightning into your gearbox, so definitely hold on to these. These are very important. Keep them somewhere safe. I'm going to put them back in the box. That way we don't lose them. And then, of course, we get my personal favorite thing, aside from the MOSFET itself, a playing card. If you guys watched the last video with the M14EBR, I went on a rant about playing cards and how I like them, and how I like that Perun put your programming aids onto a playing card. I'm not going to do that to you guys again. If you've been through that once, I won't make you do it again, but I still think this is just super neat. Perun, keep this up. I like it. But I know you guys are here for the install process and to see me break down my ACR, so we're going to get right into it. I'm going to swap over to the next camera so that you guys can see all the install process up nice and close. Let's get to it. Alright guys, now that we have swung over to the tech table, we are going to be getting into the install of our V2 Lightning and the clicker as well. But the first thing I want to do, as I promised, I am going to show you guys how to break down an A&K Masato or ACR. For any of you that are watching that have one of your own, you guys can follow along with me in the disassembly process. I will be going through it pretty quickly, so feel free to pause as needed so you guys can keep up at your own pace. But I'm also going to be respectful of the people who are here to see the install of the V2 Lightning, and we're going to get to that very shortly. First things first, we're going to want to remove the handguard from the upper receiver. That way we can access the barrel and the wiring that are underneath of it. So to do that, we are going to go ahead and punch out this pin here at the rear. You can just push your handguard forward like so, and you have no handguard, you have a naked ACR. We're going to go ahead and take the barrel off. If you guys have seen the video that I did on the WEMSK, it is very similar. We're going to just push this little tab in right here, pull our little dude here, our barrel nut. The barrel is disassembled. And now we can get into the wiring. Now, as you guys can see, this is not the standard wiring that comes inside of an A&K ACR. As far as I know, the wiring situation has always been a fuse for A&K ACRs or Masadas. As you guys can probably guess though, mine is not standard. It has been rewired to a different MOSFET in the meantime, between the time that I got it and the current moment. But we are not going to be needing that, so we're going to just go ahead and disconnect these wires. Because of the way that the wires back out into the rest of the upper receiver, that's going to be really important to do. If you can't do that for whatever reason, you can skip it for now, but I would highly recommend you do that for your A&K Masada, is disassemble whatever wiring you have up front so you are left with as little of a wire profile underneath the upper receiver as you possibly can. And to separate your upper and lower, you are going to want to look at this pin here at the front and these two here at the rear. Now, these two are your stock pins, and those I would recommend hitting out first. Our pin, quote unquote, our flathead. I was going to use my normal punch pins for this, but I realized that my punch pins go straight through the little hole in these pins and doesn't act as a punch. It just goes straight through. So, had to improvise here a little bit. Please forgive me. Again, a little bit of a modification for the A&K one that I have here. Normally there is a little screw inside of here. That screw you would have to completely unscrew, and then you can mallet out your stock here. Mine does not line up with the gearbox that I actually have in here anymore, so that screw doesn't actually screw into the spring guide inside the gearbox anymore. Your stock will just come straight out like that. A little bit of wear there on the sides, as you can probably tell. This guy has seen a lot of use. But we're going to go ahead and throw our stock off to the side. And now we are left with just our upper and lower. Now, once again, we're going to want to punch out that pin there. That will completely separate the upper and lower. Our wires, I don't know how easy you guys can see that without the light. Let me move the light here. Kind of dark. There you go. Now you can see it. So you can see our red wire at least is down there. Black one down there as well. But that is where your wires have to feed through to the rest of your upper. And if you don't take them out, you're never going to get your upper receiver separated from your lower, so make sure to do that as well. And that is where we might run into some slight issue with the Perun, where we're going to have to do something extra to get the Perun in. But if we do, we will discuss it once we actually have the Perun into the gearbox, and we won't worry about it just yet. And now that we have the lower completely separated from everything else, you've got your stock and your upper receiver off, it should look something similar to this if you guys are following along. We have three things that we need to remove so we can get the gearbox out of here. The first of which going to be the motor, which is inside the pistol grip like any standard AR. And then you have your safeties that both have to come off on either side because the ACR is ambi. And then the mag release, which we are actually going to do first because it is the easiest. So what you're going to do, come over to this side, you need to depress this side here on the other end, and then pull down on your little release here, and that will push this guy up. Then you can just simply unscrew by hand. The next thing I'm going to do is get the motor out of here, which is held in by these two guys right here. We got our motor plate off, got those two little Phillips heads out. I'm going to put them back in their slots. Again, as you guys have noticed, I've been very careful to put things back where they quote-unquote belong. That way I know where they are during the reassembly process. I was going to say reinstall process, but technically not wrong, I suppose. But either way, you're going to go ahead and pull your wires off, pluck out your motor, take our screws out of here. The only thing that we have left to do is to get our safeties off, which honestly is pretty easy. For all of my STAR people, this is much easier than, say, a Mark 16, 17, or a Mark 20.
You calling me a liar?
Well, if the boot fits.
Say that again.
If the boot fits.
Once you have your screws out, as I mentioned, we're going to go ahead and take out our selector levers here. And all you need is a little Allen key. This is actually the one I used from the M14 one that they included. I was missing it in my Allen key set, but you're going to just undo. You're not going to fully take this screw out. You want that to stay housed in the lever. Oh, you don't want to lose him. You can come back. There's a little spring underneath there. I don't know how easily you guys can see that. There's a little press tab right there that helps maneuver the selector around. We don't want to lose him. So if he falls out, grab him quickly, don't lose him, and then go over to the other side. This one, same exact thing. Find your little spot there. And you will want to take note of where these guys are positioned. You have your little points there. Hang on, let me zoom in so you can see it a little better. So right there, there is that little tab, or that little circular section, which is where the Allen key interacts with the face of that piece of metal there. You want to keep track of where those are. So right now, in the safe position, they are facing up towards the fire position, right? So you want to keep track of how those are oriented because that'll be important when you put these guys back in. Pull that guy straight out. And the things that were keeping him in place were our gears right here. Those are our selector gears. Now, you want to keep in mind which one is which. Obviously, this is your master selector. It's the one that connects to your selector plate on the other side. The one that is flat is not. You'll want to keep in mind that they sit in that orientation right there. And now that we have our gearbox separated, it should look something like this. You should have your lower completely separate from your gearbox. In some cases, you might have to pull this little guy out here. If that is the case, just undo these Phillips here on the top of it and pull that straight off, and then your gearbox should be free. And now that we have finally removed our gearbox from just about everything that is housing it, it's time to get to what all of you guys have been waiting for, aside from those of you who have been following along, to break down your own Masadas or ACRs.
On with it. Yes, get on with it.
First and foremost, we need to go ahead and pull apart this gear here. This is what connects on either side to your ambi selectors. So we're just going to press up on that. Now, as we are actually getting into our gearbox here and getting everything disassembled, I will quickly note to all of you guys that if you want to follow along with me once we get in here and get everything moving, you guys should have a video or a closer up image right now while I'm talking of the actual QR codes, not only for the Perun Lightning, but also for the version 2 Clicker Pro. If you only think that you're going to need to watch me install it and follow my steps exactly for the exact same gearbox, feel free to do that. I appreciate your faith in me, for sure. If you guys want a full breakdown on all of the components that are inside my Masada, feel free to check out the actual full-length video after this one. I'll link it in the description and in the pinned comment for you guys. I imagine if you're watching this video and are interested in the ACR and the Masada itself, you probably enjoy that quite a bit. There's a lot of good references to some of the media that I have experienced in my own life, where I have an appreciation for the ACR and the Masada. But for the version 2 Lightning, for all of you that are here for that,
we are going to take out literally everything. And I mean everything, because we are actually going to need to do some alterations to our gearbox to be able to get it in here. There are quite a few gearboxes that will not need really any alteration whatsoever to fit the version 2 Lightning into them. Unfortunately, the SEMA one that I'm using right now is in that list that needs some alteration. I'm going to show you guys what you need to do that, but of course, for any of you watching that are not using this gearbox or are using a gearbox that is listed as not needing any additional assistance, you can just watch me do what I'm doing here and continue installing once I have everything done that I need to. That little square section there and that little guy are fine, but if I try to set that down, that little circle right there, that little nub, is just right in the way. So we need to go ahead and remove him so that way our Lightning 2 can sit in there. I've gone ahead and flattened out that little space right there. It is completely ready to go. I've tested to make sure that the actual Lightning will fit into the spot now, and it fits perfectly. But there is one more thing that we need to address specifically for my ACR or Masada crowd if you're using the A&K Masada like I am. Before we can actually install this, we need to thread our MOSFET through this gap. Ordinarily, as I mentioned, while you would want to go in and, have a wire harness that can separate, so that way you can just thread your wires into the bottom right corner and then have them come out the front underneath what I'm going to call it the trunnion. I don't think that's the technical term for this block here in the ACR. Trunnions are more of an AK thing than they are an ACR thing.
This is a trunnion. Trunnions.
Thankfully, we are able to completely remove this block, our trunnion, and we can remove that piece of metal that is where the wire would originally go through. To get that out, we of course are going to have to remove a couple of screws. As you could probably guess, we have one here on this little cutie lug there, one above it, and then one at the rear. And then on the flip side, we have the same two here on either side of the trunnion, and then we have one here and then one here at the rear. One thing I did forget to mention before disassembling was that there is a little screw right here that connects to this little op rod here in the upper receiver. It's just a little flathead. All you have to do is take a flathead. There's a little groove or a little notch there, and it's a little bit easier when it's actually screwed in. It keeps wanting to slide away from me, but you just slot that in and then unscrew it. And you guys can see the problem is that little piece of metal right there. We need to get rid of that little guy right there, and our wire can just tuck right into that space that we create underneath the trunnion. As you guys saw, we did have this little gap here originally with this piece of metal kind of blocking it, and your wires were supposed to go into this underneath the trunnion in the upper receiver. By doing this, we have completely opened up this little pathway, and we have done this for a very, very specific reason, and I'll show you guys that here once we actually get everything back together. To be able to get this in, the very first thing we're going to want to do is actually slide our wires and the MOSFET itself through this little gap here in the upper receiver. As I mentioned, if you guys are not going to have your wires put out the way that I do, you do not need to worry about this whatsoever. And this comes up to the point as to why I actually made the alteration to the inside of the gearbox. I'll go ahead and light this up with a flashlight for you guys so you guys can see. But the reason is that now that alteration has been made, we can very easily just tuck our wire down, and then all we have to do is put our trunnion back in place, and we are good to go. That little circle there and that little square are going to go straight into their corresponding places. And then we're going to take that one screw that I mentioned you are going to want to keep, and it is going to go right there. And then we're going to just lightly, we're not going to like cinch it down necessarily. We want it to stay in place, don't get me wrong. But we aren't going to just like ratchet it down because that might damage your board. And now that our board is in place, it is nice and tight. It's not going anywhere. Our wires are tucked away the exact way we want them. Now we can talk about actually finalizing the install process. The first thing that we are going to address is the selector plate. Now, I know that Perun has provided us with one with the little magnet that is corresponding to the sensors on the other side of our board. We are going to try this, so I'm going to go ahead and slot this in. Now, ordinarily, Perun sends you a little baggie full of some different things going on here. You would have this little guy. You would undo these little Phillips heads, and then your trigger would sit right in here. That little spot there would align with that one there, and this would act as the little magnet that your sensor here in the top right corner interacts with. That little magnet, whenever it comes in contact with that sensor, it would count as a trigger pull. But as far as I know, or as far as I could tell in the little manual for the Clicker Pro itself, this little guy, you do not need that. So we are going to be throwing in our clicker instead in its place. To be able to do that, we are going to grab the other side of our gearbox. You can see these two little teeth, two little prongs, whatever you want to call it. The top of this little guy right here is just going to slot right into that spot. If you do not have a clicker or a speeder, you will need to use this for your triggers. That way it has a magnet for the sensor to interact with. If you are using one of these two, it has a magnet already installed into the clicker or the speeder. Again, I was given one of each. I will show you guys how to install the speeder when we get done with this one. I'll install it into my 416 and show you guys how to do that. But for the clicker, it just goes into this side of the gearbox, slots in nicely, not going anywhere. Alright guys, so I was going to show you guys how to run all the diagnostics and everything during this video, but I came to the realization that you guys don't really want to see me do all of that, truthfully, just being completely honest here. I am going to see if this little selector plate is going to work for the Masada here. If it doesn't, what you can do, if you have the same problem, is take your original one. You're going to take the double-sided tape that Perun has given you. You're going to take this little L-shaped piece of plastic that has also been provided. You're going to put that in there, and then your magnet will go into that little notch there. Obviously, once you have your double-sided tape on, it will stay in place, but that will replace the one that Perun gives you. Alright guys, so I've gone through the diagnostic testing. Everything inside the actual gearbox is good to go. Now, one thing I do want to quickly note is that I did not end up using Perun's little selector plate. It just was slightly off and didn't want to fit into the Masada lower with that ambi control switch. So I wound up using the original one with the little L-shaped piece of plastic and the magnet on top of it. So now it is very, very nice. The other thing I want to let you guys know of is that with the clicker, I was not able to put in the feature with the Clicker Pro where on safe, you can remove the ability to move your trigger. Unfortunately, it just wasn't able to fit into this SEMA gearbox the way I wanted it to. So I still am able to pull the trigger even on safe. But as you guys can hear, that trigger is super crisp. It's got a really good break on it. We'll talk about it more once I get everything put together here. Let's get back to the main table and we will go over all the cool features that we get, not only with the Lightning V2 and the clicker that's in this, but also the speeder that I put into the 416, which I will show you guys now how to install. Essentially, what we're going to be doing is there is this little itty-bitty tab right here, and that is going to slide in right here where this little guy used to be. As I'm going to do this here, you might notice there is this little lip right here, and this guy, the speeder, needs to slot in to this little square section or rectangle section right here. It right now cannot do that because there is this itty-bitty little lip right here on the gearbox. So what I'm going to go ahead and do really quick is very similar to what I did here, is very lightly Dremel and then polish and sand down this section here so we get a nice clean press into this little section in the corner. Went ahead and trimmed that down a little bit, or sanded it down rather, that's the better way to say that, and then also flattened this little guy right here that the speeder actually sits into, because on this particular gearbox, this was just a little bit too high. Now, this could just be a my gearbox thing only. Definitely check to make sure that the speeder will fit into this before you go and do that. But other than that, that is all you guys need to install your speeder, is make any sort of adjustment to your gearbox. If you guys are using the same gearbox I am, make your adjustment here on that little guy there and this little post here, and you should be good to go. I'm going to go ahead and get the 416 put back together, and we will reconvene to talk about all of the features you guys get with your new MOSFET in whatever platform you end up doing, and I'll tell you guys if I made any adjustments to either the speeder or the clicker, and talk to you guys a little bit more about that as well.
And we are back. The very first thing that we're going to be talking about is how you get into the programming mode, and then we'll go through the features that you have access to once you are there. Now, I would do this on the A&K, but if I was a betting man, I would say that most of you are going to be putting a version 2 Lightning into a more standard gearbox. So, rather than showing you guys how to enter programming mode on the A&K Masada, I'm going to show you guys how to do it on the 416. Plus, the 416 hasn't gotten a whole lot of love this video, so we're going to switch it up just for this tail end here. The very first thing you're going to want to do is obviously plug in your battery of choice. Perun does recommend using either an 11.1 or a 7.4 LiPo of some kind. I'm using an 11.1 personally. And once you plug it in, you should hear that little solid beep, meaning that your battery is plugged in, everything is good to go, your motor is connected. Once you have our battery plugged in, you have about a 5-minute window to enter programming mode. So, to do that, we are going to flip her around here, and we want to have access to our selector. We're going to go ahead and put our selector up into semi mode. Now, we are going to program for semi mode. If you want to do this for your auto mode, all you have to do is do the process I'm about to show you here in reverse, starting in auto mode and then doing the rest of it in sequence rather than starting in semi. But once you have your selector in this position, you're going to very quickly go to auto to semi to auto to semi, and you should be greeted with that long beep and then a sequence of beeps afterwards. The very first thing that you are met with when you enter programming mode, as you guys can hear, is the fire mode, which is lit by a green indicator through your trigger. I don't know if you guys can see that down there in the trigger guard, but there is a little LED that indicates to you exactly what mode of programming you are in as you go through this process. Each one has a different series of lights and sounds that are associated with them. So you want to keep in mind and keep track of which one you're on. Thankfully, Perun makes it very easy to accommodate and find out which mode you are on. Right now, we are on our selection mode for our different fire modes. Right now, we are set in semi, and you can choose multiple different fire modes for both your semi position and auto position. For me, though, I'm going to be leaving both of them exactly how they are. I'm going to be leaving semi as semi, and I'm going to be leaving auto as auto. But if you guys want to change them, you have the option of putting them either as a safety position, a semi position, an auto position, a burst position, which is very, very nice and has another setting that we'll talk about in just a moment. And you also get a binary mode, which I will not be using myself. It's just not something that I want in a 416 myself. I think it's cool, don't get me wrong. I'm just not going to be using it a whole lot unless I'm just kind of messing around and fiddling with stuff just because I can. But once you are done with that, you're going to go ahead and flip your selector to the next programming section, which is our burst count. As you guys can hear, the base setting for the burst is 3. It can range anywhere from being one burst, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense because that's just semi, but ranging anywhere from 1 to 5. Now, for me personally, I like a good 3-round burst. I also like a good 4-round burst. A 5-round burst, also pretty dope. Now, to get to our next one, as you could probably guess, we're going to go ahead and flip our safety back to semi, which will advance us to our next option, which I'm going to look at my card one more time, which is our auto braking level, which is a little dark blue indicator. Again, hopefully, if you guys can't see that, I will put up some close-ups so you guys can see that a little bit better. But each of these correspond with what is on your card, so make sure to reference it as I am doing, because relying on memory doesn't always work, and let's be honest, having a card, a little cheat sheet is just nice. But auto braking by default is set to level 2. It can be turned off and go anywhere from, I believe, a level 1 to, just going to double check, a level 5. So by default, it's set to 2. Now, auto braking is going to effectively what it's doing is it is stopping your replica from firing twice, especially with something like a speeder or like a high rate of fire. For the 416, I'm going to be leaving it at a 2, but there's a good chance I might be backing it off to a 1, because when I was testing with the 416 and the ACR sounds really good with all of the factory settings that are going on in the Lightning. The 416 sounds a touch slow. Now, that could be because of the motor. The motor might need to be upgraded, which is I will do in the off time if that is the case. But I will do some additional testing, and I'll put it up on screen after the fact if I wound up changing it to 1 or leaving it as factory default of 2. But once you guys have your active braking set in, you're once again going to flip over to auto and silence. But that is because the default setting for the next thing that we're going to be talking about is off. The next thing that we have is pre-cocking. Pre-cocking, if you're not familiar, is where the piston is pulled back ahead of time. So that way when you pull the trigger, it's immediately dropping the piston forward. And it gives you a faster rate of fire or a faster trigger response in your gearbox. The only one that I might mess with a little bit of pre-cocking is for the 416 here, because it is meant to be more of a speed build.
Speed. I am speed.
For right now, I'm going to be leaving those at the factory settings of off, meaning 0 in terms of precocking, but referencing our little card here again, it can range anywhere from level 1 all the way up to a level 8. So you have a very wide range of customization on precocking, if that's something that you want to do. Moving on from that, we're going to go ahead and flip back to semi here again. And once again, we are met with a setting that is off by default. And that setting is your 2-stage trigger. Now, I know quite a few people are not a fan of 2-stage triggers, but in the event that you do not know what that is, it is something that our friend the AUG is very familiar with that I brought up earlier. It is where when you pull the trigger halfway, it is semi, and when you pull it all the way, it is full auto. That really isn't something that I want or that I need on either of these two replicas, so I'm going to be leaving that off, but I believe, I'm going to double check here, so you can either have it off by default, or you can have a 2-stage trigger of semi and burst, 2-stage trigger of semi and auto, or a 2-stage trigger of burst and auto. I'm not going to be doing that because this trigger is fairly light, all things considered. So I'm not going to do that. With that said, we are going to, once again, flip on down to our next position. And unlike the last two settings, as you guys can hear, this setting does have something on by default. And this is our trigger sensitivity setting. This one ranges anywhere from 1 to, let me double check here, I'm pretty sure it is 8. Yep, anywhere from 1 to 8. Just like precocking, wide range of customization for your trigger sensitivity. And by default, it is right in the middle at 4. As you guys can hear, there are 4 sequential beeps. For me, I'm going to be leaving it right at 4 because personally, we'll cover this once we get through the programming, but the triggers for both of these feel superb. So I'm not going to be messing with the trigger sensitivity in here right now. We will cover what the triggers feel like here in just a moment, but for right now, very nice. We're going to be leaving that right where it is at 4. Once you are done with that, we are going to go ahead and, as you could guess, flip it back to semi, which is going to bring us to silence. Once more, we have another position or another feature that is off by default, and that position is your rate of fire reduction. But by default, it is set to off, but it can range anywhere from 1 to 5. 1 to 5? Yes, I couldn't read for a minute. I almost said 1 to 8, but it's 1 to 5. I'm going to be leaving the rate of fire reduction off on both the 416 and the ACR because both of them super crisp and very good solid rate of fire that doesn't necessarily break any rules for Bing, which is the main field that I play at, so they're going to be staying right where they need to for right now. Of course, as you can guess, we're going to flip her back to auto for our next position.
I knew it.
I knew it.
And once again, we are met by silence because this is something that is turned off by default, DMR mode. Now, I don't know about you guys. I would not consider this a DMR, and I certainly wouldn't consider that a DMR. There is a DMR version of this ACR. I like a good DMR ACR. But for our purposes, DMR mode is going to be staying off. This is really something for our Milsim crowd, as we have had a few settings for our Speedy Boy crowd. The lightning accommodates both sides of the equation. Don't fear, Milsim boys. It's got you. Essentially what it's going to do is it's going to make your platform act more like a DMR type class to make it feel more realistic to the platform that you are using it for. Obviously, neither of these are DMRs, so we're not going to be turning that off. Or turning that on, rather. It is already off by default. So we're going to go to our next one. And our next one, we are met by a beeping sound, but this one is super easy. It has 2 options, on or off. And that is because that is our LiPo alarm, which means that when your LiPo, your battery, is getting low, it will beep at you to let you know. That way you don't overexert your battery or do anything that you shouldn't be doing with a low power battery. This is something that I would recommend all you guys leave on for yourselves because, let's face it, if you've had experience with a battery dying on you before and it not going super well... Sorry, I was having flashbacks. It's like Vietnam for all of the people who fought in Vietnam. I shouldn't equate that. I shouldn't equate PTSD for my Evo blowing up to Vietnam PTSD. That's incredibly insensitive. Anyway, moving on. We're going to go to our next position, which by default is off. I do not have dual sector gears in either of these. This is definitely something that is more for my speedy boys or anyone who has a speedy type platform. Neither of these really are. They have some faster gears, don't get me wrong, but they're not DSGs. So we're going to be leaving those off. If you have a DSG, this is something you will have to turn on for your lightning to cycle properly. And then the very last thing that you're going to get when you cycle back here is a little red indicator, or hopefully you guys can see that, a little red indicator. That is your master reset. Now, we don't want it to reset anything, so we're going to flip that back and you will be met with the same long beep sound that you had when you entered programming mode. Once you get out of your master reset, you will be in your auto position, so we're going to go ahead and just put that back to safe. And now, we're going to talk about some of the personal things I will be changing both to the 416, which, spoiler alert, will probably be nothing aside from the auto braking that I already mentioned, and the ACR, which that one I won't be changing at all, so that was super easy. But that does mean that in terms of personal changes, I won't be making a whole lot of change to either of the Lightning 2s. Other than that though, the main changes that I actually made were to the speeder and the clicker that are both in each of these replicas here. Now for the speeder, I don't know if I showed you guys this on the install process, but on the top of the speeder there is that piece of metal, that metal bar that connects to the magnet on the inside. You have 3 different levels. You have a polymer bar that doesn't have any resistance whatsoever. You have the initial one, which is right in the middle, and then you have the heavier metal that has a very, very positive click. Now, as I might have mentioned during the install process, I did end up changing that to get a more positive click on the speeder. I'll give you guys a demonstration here. As you guys can see, no mag, we are perfectly safe, and it's in a safe direction, but have that initial wall right there, and then nice clean break. Doesn't have the same amount of positive feedback on the trigger or a real, like a simulated trigger in the same way, but it does still have a very positive click. So it's in safe right now. I'm not sure if you guys can hear that, but it does have a very, very solid positive click. Not quite as much as the clicker, which I'll pull out here right now. Now, if I do the same thing here, make sure this is in safe, or in, actually, yeah, it can go in safe. But that sounds a lot different than what's in the speeder, if you guys can hear that. So, much, much different. But as you guys probably saw during the install process for the ANK ACR, the safe position does not have that safety block that it comes with for the Clicker Pro. Like I mentioned, I highly recommend you guys use that safety block because it does add that little bit of immersion, and it's a key feature of the Clicker Pro, and as such, I would recommend you guys use it. But for right now, when it's on safe, I can still pull the trigger. It's not that big of a deal for me. I have plenty of replicas that do that. Obviously, the 416 does that now. I still think the clicker in here feels great on the ACR. The ACR itself performs super, super well, which I'll go ahead and show you guys now as well. Still, pull the trigger on safe. It's not going to do anything. But if I flop it up to our semi mode, sounds super crisp. I really like how that feels with that new clicker in there with the Lightning. That really begs the question, what do I think personally of the Lightning 2? And ignoring the extra tidbits, obviously I very much enjoy the Clicker Pro and the speeder as well. But what do I think of the Lightning 2 specifically? What are my opinions on it so far? Honestly, as you guys can probably guess by how this video has gone, I have very few complaints for this MOSFET. It's super solid. I have almost no complaints. Everything I would say about it is very positive. I would highly recommend any of you guys get that. And I don't just say that because this is a sponsored video by Perun. I think you guys legitimately would love having a Lightning 2 in any of your version 2 gearboxes. It has a lot of really, really great features that I think make it an absolute winner for any gearbox. The only thing I could really complain about, and this is more just a preference thing, is that for the front wired unit, as you guys saw for the ANK ACR, we had to make quite a few adjustments to the actual replica itself to get it in there, and that's entirely because the Dean's connector up front can't detach from the rest of the harness. If I could lend some sort of a suggestion, sort of like I did for the M14, it's not a complaint, it's not a criticism, it's just, for Perun specifically, if they watch all the way to this point, which I imagine they will since they did for the last one as well, if you can have some way to disconnect that wire without severing like the connection, so to speak, that would be super great, just because it would make the install of this even easier than it already is. Don't get me wrong, super easy. If you're not putting it into an ACR, already super easy. But that would be my only criticism, if you want to even call it that. Outside of that very, very minor suggestion, and honestly a very niche suggestion, let's be real, I would highly recommend any of you guys going and getting a Lightning 2 for yourselves. I'm going to be taking these guys out to the field very soon to test them out, to see if there's anything that I should make you guys aware of. I'm going to be honest, I'm pretty excited to get these out to the field here pretty soon. The next time I go out will most likely be most games of just these two. So trust me, there will be some gameplay here pretty soon with both of these replicas out in the field to see how the Lightning stands up. Gameplay and testing in a very controlled environment are two very different things, so if anything comes of it, I'll be sure to let you guys know during those videos. But at this point, very solid, very, very pleased with both of the MOSFETs that are now inside of these replicas, and I'm very happy with it. So if you guys want to get one for yourselves, you guys can head over to any of your favorite retailers, whatever your preference might be, so long as they have the Lightning 2 in stock. I've done some looking. There's quite a few out there. Most of the main retailers have them. Feel free to go to any of your favorite retailers for airsoft equipment and tech parts and get yourself a Lightning 2. Outside of that, though, thank you guys so much again for watching today's video. Thank you for all the support. I mean, let's face it, there's a chance that if you guys hadn't supported the M14 video like you had when I did the install for their Perun clicker into that, there's a chance that if you guys hadn't done that, I wouldn't be doing this video. So, truly, thank you guys for all the support on the channel. Thank you again to Perun for sponsoring today's video and for continuing to work with a goober like myself. I truly appreciate it, and I'm truly humbled to be able to do that. And of course, if you guys would like to support the channel further, aside from leaving a like, commenting down below your thoughts in today's video, and of course watching up to this point, which I do appreciate, you guys can head over to Walton Apparel to get yourself a badass decal sticker or a comfy shirt, one of which being for the Masada itself. If you're a fan of the Masada, if you're going to be getting a Lightning 2 into your own personal Masada / ACR, would get yourself a badass ACR / Masada sticker and include it into the nice swag that Perun sent you. A little bit of a shameless plug there. But other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. This has been Wolf, and hope to see you guys next time I hit the field. More than likely with this bad boy right here and the 416 as well, because genuinely I'm very excited to get these things out and see what's going on with them. Seriously, legitimately, guys, go get yourselves a Lightning 2. This process was super easy. I know this is a long video. I appreciate you guys watching, but honestly, pretty solid. Solid stuff. Gotta be real.